Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about functions here. We've actually been using functions since the very beginning of the course. We've used the input function, we've used the float function, and some others as well. The way that a function works is you have parameters that you might pass to it. So the things inside the parentheses here are the parameters, and you call the function and it does something for you. So we have been doing this. The function itself is kind of like a black box. We give it the information it needs. In this case, the input function just needs a string that becomes the prompt that it puts out on the console so that the user can type in their input. And we don't know exactly how the input function works. We just know that we plug something into it and it does what it's supposed to do, and it gives us the result, which is whatever the user types at the keyboard. In this case, they typed 15.2 and hit enter, and that creates a string that shows those symbols. So it's not actually a numeric value, it's a string value. And if we need a numeric value, we need to convert that. So the result of the input function gets plugged in as the parameter or the argument for the float function. So we're going to pass this value that resulted to the float function. And so again, we don't know exactly how it works. We didn't write the code, but we know that it works. If we give it a string value that looks like that, we are going to get out the corresponding numeric value, which we can then plug into our variable. And so it will save a copy of that value in the variable in memory named room width. Now, presumably, we might also have a room length. We're going to do the same process, call the input. It gets the result of that, passes that to the float function, and gets the result. And so we're going to get some other value, which will also be saved in memory with the name of room length. So presumably, as we go on in our program, let's say we have defined this little function, and it's obviously very simple, but it's just going to calculate square feet for us. If we give it a width and we give it a length, it's going to calculate the square feet by multiplying them together and returning that to us. So here in our code, we've called the input and converted it to float for the room width and for the room length. So we have those values stored in memory. Now we need to know the size, which we're going to get by calling the square foot function and giving it those values that we just got. So when we call the square foot function that we created, Python's going to go looking for that definition, which is here, and it matches it up. And the definition says, well, we need a width, and so it's going to match the width, the first parameter, to the first thing that we pass it, and it's going to match the length to the second thing that we pass it. So those two parameters get passed to square foot, and in this case they are variables, which means it has to go find those variables by those names in memory and to get the actual values. So when we call the function, it goes and fetches the room width and passes that as the first value that it sends to square foot, and then it gets the room length from memory, passes that value to square foot as its length, and then the square foot does whatever it's supposed to do, which says right here it's going to multiply the two together and return the result. So that's what it's actually doing inside the hidden box here, and it gets a result of 329.84, which is the result of the function, and that gets plugged into size. And so it will copy that and store that in memory under the name of size.